Hello and welcome to another episode of From the Beginning here on Have a Word Thinking. Today we're continuing on in the book of Leviticus. We're looking at Leviticus chapter 25. It's a long chapter, so buckle up, we'll read it, and we'll get right into this week's teaching. The Lord said to Moses at Mount Sinai, "Speak to the Israelites, and say to them, when you enter the land I am going to give you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years sow your fields, and for 6 years prune your vineyards and gather their crops. But in the 7th year the land is to have a year of Sabbath rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. Do not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the grapes of your untended vines. The land is to have a year of rest. Whatever the land yields during the Sabbath year will be food for you, for yourself, your male and female servants, and the hired worker and temporary resident who live among you, as well as for your livestock and the wild animals in your land. Whatever the land produces may be in. Count off 7 Sabbath years, 7 times 7 years, so that the 7 Sabbath years amount to a period of 49 years. Then have the trumpet sounded everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the Day of Atonement, sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you is to return to your family property and to your own clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. Do not sow and do not reap what grows of itself, or harvest the untended vines. For it is a jubilee, and is to be holy for you. Eat only what is taken directly from the fields. In this year of Jubilee, everyone is to return to their own property. If you sell land to any of your own people or buy land from them, do not take advantage of each other. You are to buy from your own people on the basis of the number of years since the Jubilee, and they are to sell you on the basis of the number of years left for harvesting crops. When the years are many, you are to increase the price, and when the years are few, you are to decrease the price, because what is really being sold to you is the number of crops. Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God. Follow my decrees and be careful to obey my laws, and you will live safely in the land. Then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and live there in safety. You may ask, what will we eat in the 7th year if we do not plant or harvest our crops? I will send you such a blessing in the 6th year that the land will yield enough for 3 years. While you plant during the 8th year, you will eat from the old crop and will continue to eat from it until the harvest of the 9th year comes in. The land must not be sold permanently, because the land is mine, and you reside in my land as foreigners and strangers. Throughout the land that you hold as a possession, you must provide for the redemption of the land. If one of your fellow Israelites becomes poor and sells some of their property, their nearest relative is to come and redeem what they have sold. If, however, there is no one to redeem it for them, but later on they prosper and acquire sufficient means to redeem it themselves, they are to determine the value for the year since they sold it, and refund the balance to the one to whom they sold it. They can then go back to their own property. But if they do not acquire the means to repay, what was sold will remain in the possession of the buyer until the year of Jubilee. It will be returned in the Jubilee, and they can then go back to their property. Anyone who sells a house in a walled city retains the right of redemption a full year after its sale. During that time, the seller may redeem it. If it is not redeemed before a full year has passed, the house in the walled city shall belong permanently to the buyer and the buyer's descendants. It is not to be returned in the Jubilee. But houses and villages without walls around them are to be considered as belonging to the open country. They can be redeemed, and they are to be returned in the Jubilee. The Levites always have the right to redeem their houses in the Levitical towns which they possess, so the property of the Levites is redeemable, that is, a house sold in any town they hold, and is to be returned in the Jubilee, because the houses and the towns of the Levites are their property among the Israelites. But the pasture land belonging to their towns must not be sold. It is their permanent possession. If any of your fellow Israelites become poor and are unable to support themselves among you, help them as you would a foreigner and a stranger, so they can continue to live among you. Do not take interest or any profit from them, but fear your God, so that they may continue to live among you. You must not lend them money at interest or sell them food at a profit. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan and to be your God. If any of your fellow Israelites becomes poor and sell themselves to you, do not make them work as slaves. They are to be treated as hired workers or temporary residents among you. They are to work for you until the year of Jubilee. Then they and their children are to be released, and they will go back to their own clans and to the property of their ancestors. Because the Israelites are my servants, whom I brought out of Egypt, they must not be sold as slaves. Do not rule over them ruthlessly, but fear your God. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. If a foreigner residing among you becomes rich, and any of your fellow Israelites become poor, and sell themselves to the foreigner or to a member of the foreigner's clan, they retain the right of redemption after they have sold themselves. One of their relatives may redeem them, an uncle or a cousin or any blood relative in their clan may redeem them, or if they prosper, they may redeem themselves. They and their buyer are to count the time from the year they sold themselves up to the year of Jubilee. The price for their release is to be based on the rate paid to a hired worker for that number of years. If many years remain, they must pay for their redemption a larger share of the price paid for them. If only a few years remain until the year of Jubilee, they are to compute that and pay for their redemption accordingly. They are to be treated as workers hired from year to year. You must see to it that those to whom they owe service do not rule over them ruthlessly. Even if someone is not redeemed in any of these ways, they and their children are to be released in the year of Jubilee. For the Israelites belong to me as servants. They are my servants, whom I brought out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. A very long chapter indeed, but there's a lot that we can look at and learn from in this chapter. First, we start with the Sabbath year. God gives specific instructions to the Israelites that they are to work the land for 6 years and then observe a Sabbath rest for a whole year. That is, again, emphasizing what we've already talked about a lot throughout Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus, this idea of a Sabbath rest. Because God rested on the seventh day, he tells his people to honor the Sabbath day, every seventh day, and here a seventh year, a Sabbath year, a Sabbath rest that is holy to the Lord. Again, he is emphasizing to the Israelites all throughout the book of Leviticus that he is holy, he's called them to be holy, he's called them to be set apart and different and dedicated to him. And here in this chapter, we see that he is ultimately the one who owns the land that the Israelites are going to live in. He even says here that they are foreigners and strangers in his land. He is the one who owns the land. And I think it's a radical concept for us to realize that God is ultimately the owner of everything. He ultimately owns the land you and I live on. He owns the possessions. He can do with everything that he created whatever he wants to do. And that is certainly the case here with the Israelites. He's giving them this land flowing with milk and honey, this amazing land to be their possession, but he gives them specific instructions that they are foreigners and strangers in that land, and they need to make sure that they both honor the Sabbath day and honor this Sabbath year, that they are to give the land rest. But it's not like God is telling them that you have to go starve for a whole year or take a year fast. That might be very hard to do. Instead, he tells them that if they follow his decrees, if they follow his laws, then he is going to make sure that they live safely in the land, but not just that. But the land is going to yield its fruit, and they will eat their fill. And again, he goes above and beyond and says that they are going to continue to eat the produce of that 6th year while they're still planting for that 8th year. So all throughout that 7th year, going throughout that 8th year, when they're planting again, and he said that they will eat from the old crop and continue to eat until the harvest of the 9th year. God is going to send such a blessing on the Israelites in that 6th year if they follow his commands and decrees, super important. If they give the land that Sabbath rest, then he is going to bless them so much, it's going to more than make up for that year, and the land is going to have a time of rest. God's super specific about this. He takes it very seriously. We're going to see throughout the Old Testament how seriously God takes this, and the fact that the Israelites, they didn't do such a good job of honoring the Sabbath year. They didn't give the land the rest that God said that the land needed to have. And it's important for us to see that God is setting the stage for things we're going to see later on, but it's important that we follow God's commands. The Israelites, they didn't do a super great job doing that. You and I, probably we don't do the greatest job doing that, but we need to make sure that when God gives us a command, we do it. God promises the Israelites here, hey, listen, if you follow my commands and decrees, I'm going to bless you abundantly. Who wouldn't want to sign up for that? God is saying to you, the God of the universe who created you, created everything, giving you this great land, redeemed you out of Egypt, is bringing you into this amazing land flowing with milk and honey. He tells you, listen, if you just do these things, then I'm going to bless you so much that you're going to be able to not even have to harvest or plant for an entire year. That should be amazing. People should be like, well, sign me up for that. But they somehow missed the point time and time again. They missed the mark. And you and I, we get all these promises throughout Scripture of, hey, listen, you do these things, then I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. You have this and this as a reward. And we're like, maybe not. and somehow we get off track just like the Israelites. And so we find ourselves in the same place as them. Then later on here in this chapter, we see in verse 17, and all throughout this whole idea of the year of Jubilee and how God is telling the Israelites that they can sell property, but that at the end, when they have this 50th year, it is to go back to the original owner. They can have slaves, but then they have to go back to the original owner at the end of the 50 years. If the Israelites get poor and have to sell themselves to their fellow Israelites, they're to be treated appropriately, not as slaves, but as hired workers, and then they, and the year of Jubilee, if they don't get redeemed earlier, they then get freed in that year of Jubilee. It's this great year of freedom, this great year of things going back to the way they used to be, and the land reverting back to the original owners, people reverting back to the originals. It's this great year of freedom and celebration. And it's a great thing, but it's in the midst of all of this whole list of how the year of Jubilee is supposed to work. We see some important things. We see in verse 17, it says, "Do not take advantage of each other, but fear your God. I am the Lord your God." And I think this is super applicable to you and I today, even though we live thousands of years later, that we shouldn't be taking advantage of other people. I think we see that in the New Testament as well. We should be looking at other people and treating them the way God wants us to treat them, which means valuing them just as much and even more so than we value ourselves, and not taking advantage of them. That's by not taking advantage of people, we are fearing God. We are honoring the Lord. We are worshiping and serving Him by not taking advantage of other people. He goes into specific details of how the Israelites aren't to take advantage of people, how they aren't to treat their own fellow Israelites as slaves, how they aren't to charge interest, how they're not to charge for a profit when people are poor, how so that they're supposed to come up alongside both the native-born and foreigners and help them. Imagine if we lived in a society, in a world where if you and I saw a need, we met it. If we didn't see someone in a bad position and try to take advantage, I mean, just look at how our whole system of finances today in the world. It's all about interest, all about making money off of people who can't afford things. It's kind of crazy when you and I look around the world today and we see all of the people of the world trying to take advantage of each other, and we wonder why the world is messed up. Well, it's because we're taking advantage of each other. Instead of treating people like we would treat ourselves, of honoring other people, taking care of other people, seeing a need and meeting it, rather than just passing it by and going, well, those poor people, someone will help them. Like if you and I actually applied these things that God is telling us to do, if we took care of other people, imagine the kind of society we could live in. Again, we live in a fallen world, we realize that, but imagine what you and I could do if we didn't take advantage of people, but instead feared the Lord, honored God, and honored other people. And so when you look at this chapter, there's a lot of wording, there's a lot of things that might not make a lot of sense, might not be super applicable because we don't live in the Israelites' time where they had all these Sabbath years and Jubilees set up, but we can still see super important things of how we treat people, how we honor God, and how we honor each other. And hopefully we live differently than the world around us this week. Hope that you've been encouraged and challenged by this, and that you'll join us next time for another episode of From the Beginning here on Heavenward Thinking.